Good evening, everyone. How are you? You're probably not hearing me too well, are you? Or are you? Is it okay? Good. Well, I am Brent Engel. I want to thank you for taking the time to attend this forum tonight. For those who aren't here, we have them watching on the Tribcast, and we have also two journalists here tonight who will have it in next week's papers. So that's great. It's great participation. I've spent more than 30 years in the media and public relations, so I've been through a few of these. Our founding fathers set up a unique form of government whereby the people we elect are responsible to us. They don't get to dictate everything, so that's good. You'll hear tonight from the candidates for municipal offices, and there are a lot of them, and we appreciate that. Here's how we're going to proceed tonight. First, the uncontested candidates for the 4th Ward Alderman position are going to be given a chance to come up and for 5 minutes talk about what they would like to see done if elected. And of course, they are unopposed, so that's why we're giving them that opportunity. There's no question and answer session as a part of that. Then there will be a question and answer session for the 1st, 2nd, 3rd wards and the mayor's position. In the question and answer portion, each candidate will be allowed a 3-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. Candidates will take turns answering questions submitted by the news media and the audience. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question, and then his opponent will have 2 minutes to respond, even if the question is not specifically directed to them. A signal will be given when candidates have 15 seconds remaining, and Liz Wallace is down here in front with the signal. That's the yellow flag is your 15-second warning. If you get to the point where your time is up, here's what's going to happen. She's going to raise the red flag, and I'm going to cut you off. And Martha Sue Smith knows that I've done it before, and I'll do it again. Don't you, Martha Sue? No, I wasn't cutting you off. I was cutting the candidates off. Candidates may not ask direct questions of each other, and we encourage you, candidates, not to put down your opponent. Tell us what you want to do. To be fair to each candidate, we ask the audience to hold its applause until the end of each segment. We had a little bit different setup this time for the picking the questions. In the past, it's just been the news media and me. This time we added some people to the whole event from the DAR. Let's give them a round of applause because they're one of the sponsors tonight. And a man whose integrity can never be questioned, Reverend Bill Maupin. Reverend, thank you for helping out. We appreciate it. So we did not use any questions of a libelous or a lascivious nature. But candidates are not going to expect any softballs either. To paraphrase Harry Truman, if you can't stand the political heat, get out of the kitchen. Some inquiries may not be answered because of the time limit for each segment, and some have been combined with similar questions that were submitted by the media and the audience. There were several questions, and it's great that great minds all think alike because a lot of you had some of the same questions that the news media had. We've kind of combined some of those questions into one. The audience is welcome to approach the candidates after we conclude to ask any question they have remaining. We do ask as a courtesy that you stay in the building for the entire event. Restrooms are over here to my right. If you do have to leave, please try to do so quietly and silence your cell phones if at all possible. Pike County Chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution and American Legion Post 370 have agreed to sponsor this event solely as a community service. Neither of these organizations, nor their members specifically or publicly endorse candidates. Tonight's format is one I've seen work well over the last 3 decades, as I said, but there's always room for improvement. So if you have something you would like to see changed, let me know. We'll consider it for the next time. The part of the allowing the non-contested candidates to speak, that came out of the last forum that we did for the county candidates in 2016. So I am listening. Now I have some disclosures to make in the interests of any appearance of impropriety. I've had personal, professional, or organizational dealings with Tim Jackson, Miles Neff, Robert Jenny, Chuck Hoffman, and Tim Carter. As a journalist, I've quoted Mr. Jenny and Mr. Carter in past stories, but not as a part of this campaign. I previously served in an organization in which Mr. Jackson was a member at the time. We performed a skit at the chamber banquet. I've been a business customer of Mr. Neff and Mr. Hoffman, and I serve on not-for-profit boards with both of their wives. That's all I got. But many of us like to reread books, of course, the Bible probably being at the top of that list. But lately, I've been reading Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. And he had some pretty good stuff to say. He wrote down hundreds of stuff. He was a Roman emperor who lived almost 2,000 years ago. And one of the things he said I think is pretty applicable to tonight. And if I can get to it, I will. He said that if someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change. I seek the truth, which has never harmed anyone. The harm is to persist in one's own self-deception and ignorance. So let us have a frank, in-depth discussion and learn more about the issues facing our city. Most of all, let's be thankful for that privilege. I'm now going to call upon somebody I've known for more than 20 years now, the Reverend D. Randall Cohn, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Reverend Cohn. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask, is Bob Ringhausen in the house? Bob, are you here? Okay. Well, and I know that Rodney Dolbear is not either because he was coming back from Mississippi. He told me over the weekend he had a job assignment in Mississippi, and so he is not here either. So I will ask First Ward candidates Tim Jackson and James Davis to take a seat on the stage. In the ballot order, please. Oh, yeah. That would be good. Have some light.
There we go. Hey, Mr. Davis. Oh, he's doing good. How you doing?
And I was going to say, let's have a handshake, gentlemen, and get to it. Mr. Jackson, you will start. You have 3 minutes, sir, to introduce yourself and talk about what you'd like to do.
All right. Hi. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming out for this event. My name is Tim Jackson. I moved here about 3 years ago after several years of, actually, I didn't grow up here. My folks are from Bowling Green originally and came back to take care of them. And like my father, I jumped at the chance to be involved in the community and contribute where I could. I ran for city council 2 years ago, finishing up my first term. I've been involved on several committees and am currently the chairperson for the ordinance committee, where we've recently rewrote the charter ordinance for the Board of Adjustment and have continued to go through and clean up very old ordinances, stuff that's outdated. I enjoyed my time on the city council. I'm kind of the odd man out sometimes because I didn't grow up in town. I didn't go to high school here, and I'm just a new resident. But I come from different places. I lived in Boulder, Colorado, in Fort Collins, Colorado, in Nashville, Tennessee, in South Bend, Indiana, to name a few. And I just enjoy participating where I can. What I'd like to see the next 2 years is a shift, a move towards capitalizing on our new bridge projects, capitalizing on new traffic that's coming to town, capitalizing on the workers that are going to be here over the next 2 years, and maybe converting some of those to residents. We need a new influx of thoughts, a new influx of people, some younger voices, to lead this town and hopefully provide some new jobs.
Thank you very much. Mr. Davis, you have up to 3 minutes to introduce yourself and say what you'd like to do.
Thank you, sir. My name's James Davis, and I moved here 16 years ago, and I bought a historical building in downtown Louisiana, 403 Georgia. A lot of you people may know it, you know, it's because you were kids and went in there. I get a lot of people telling me they bought bubble gum and candy from Dottie Maxfield. Can you hear me back there? And I hope to serve people, but at the same time, I'm a little eccentric, and I like historical properties, and I've always had them my whole life. And we're what they call urban pioneers. We work in places that are run down, and we come there and we rebuild them and we put them back together. And some people don't understand that. They don't really appreciate new things. I mean, new changes. They see it as something in their memory, and they can't quite get that out of their memory. And I want them to know that we and myself, we want to keep it just like you like it. We don't want to change it or be anything different. We want to really know what you want and serve you. And given the chance, we will. So I might say about my own self, I'm married 51 years, and I have 4 children, 5 grandchildren. And my family came here in 1840 in Curryville, and that's some of my history. I get a little nervous up here. I got to control myself a little bit. A lot of people to talk to. I guess you're supposed to focus on one person that's going like this, you know. But I don't see anybody doing that. Maybe 1 or 2, you know. But I appreciate what Mr. Jackson's saying, and I see that, you know, I see new growth coming here and new things happening. I just hope I can hold on just a little bit longer to stay there with it. And it's been a long, hard struggle. There's been a lot of misunderstanding. People don't know you. You're from out of town, and a lot of those things. You're kind of become new, but you know you have to forgive people because they don't. You become like a threat to their social fabric, and I really don't want to be that. Being a Christian, I don't want to be that. I want to be like open and be part of the community and be appreciated for what I'm doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The less you talk, the more questions you get to answer, by the way, just so you know. Mr. Davis, you will get the first question tonight since your opponent led off in the open with the introductions. So this question is for you, sir.
Yes,
you
sir.
will have 2 minutes to respond. Your time will start when you start talking.
All right.
And then your opponent will have 2 minutes to respond to the same question.
All right.
The city is looking at a plan for dealing with blighted properties. What specifically would you recommend?
Well, I don't like the word blighted because they all have a historical background, and there's families that lived there before. And what we need to do is we need to have appreciation for some of those older homes that were built in the 20s. And there was a big movement here in 1890. I did some of the studies on it, and we need a consciousness that says we want to take care of the older homes and bring them back into the rest of the community here.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You now have 2 minutes to respond, sir.
Thank you. This community faces an interesting problem that the structures around town are falling down and becoming vacant, and we just don't have the people to fill those gaps. We don't have the businesses to fund cleaning up those houses. We have a large school that has fallen into disrepair, and it will be a huge burden on us as we try to move forward. I'm a fan of old houses. I moved to Louisiana because I always loved coming here as a kid and driving up and down the streets and seeing the big houses. But at the same time, you have to be realistic that if stuff isn't used, then it deteriorates to the point where it's not safe. Right. And I'm a huge proponent of keeping buildings, but when they become unsafe, unmanaged, empty, flooded, roofs collapsing, you have to be realistic. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, being realistic means we have to make some cuts. in our lovely downtown, physical cuts, and it's unfortunate, but it's also progress moving forward. I can show you pictures from some of the Facebook posts of what Louisiana used to look like, and there's a lot of buildings that are not standing anymore. And unfortunately, that will continue, but I think we can triage the buildings and save the ones we can, but at the same time, we do have to be able to let go and be fiscally responsible for and safety responsible for our town.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jackson, you will get the chance to answer this next question first, and then your opponent will have 2 minutes to respond. And the question is this: though there is a plan in place, do you fear that the huge cost of the Georgia Street upgrade will take too much funding away from street projects in other parts of the city, including your ward? Please explain your answer.
The Georgia Street Corridor project was and is mostly funded by a tax increase that we all voted on at the last election. It doesn't substitute money that we have budgeted. It's an additional cost. It's additional revenue that we've made accommodations for. I fully support the Georgia Street project. The infrastructure there, some of it's 100 years old, some of it's 150 years old. And without that, everything else will crumble around it. I live on a street that's reasonably well, but I also travel down streets on a regular basis that aren't. And again, it's an issue that we're trying to address with budget concerns. And you know, of course, I want everything to be shiny and new. And I grew up in a street with bricks, and I know we can't go back to that, but I think we should be able to find a solution to take care of these problems, not today, not tomorrow, but on the long term.
Mr. Davis, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Can you repeat the question?
You bet. Though there is a plan in place, do you fear that the huge cost of the Georgia Street upgrade will take too much funding away from street projects in other parts of the city, including your ward? Please explain your answer.
Well, what I get out of it is the paramount issue is the old town in Louisiana over just about anything else. When we go somewhere, we say we're from Louisiana, and that is Louisiana, not the rural outskirts of the town. The buildings are pretty much all empty now. I think our focus ought to be our consciousness should be with the original town, which is on 4th Street in Georgia. I feel that that's the best move we can make when we get up there, and to get everybody to somewhat come together on that. That's what people really love. They love that 4th and Georgia stuff down there. Up the street is kind of like it was called Newtown at one time, and they brought water in 1890 when they electrified it, and the creek that's down there is for people to siphon water in the buildings that I own. That was just for siphon. They didn't have water pressure. And we need to really keep those. Even the Gertha Hodges old building, as some of the old timers refer to it as, 401 Georgia. It's probably going to come down. It's a little too late to bring that consciousness that we need to have it to fulfill the task there. But maybe, there's still hope. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And you will get the chance to answer this next question first, and you'll have 2 minutes to respond.
All right.
And this is a combined question because it was by at least 4 audience members and 2 members of the media. So it's a combined question, and it is this. Given the city's financial situation, what specific measures would you introduce to move toward a more healthy and sustainable economy? You have 2 minutes, sir.
Well, Louisiana could be a Nashville. We could have a lot of things down there, and people come here, and you can tell them all, they all got their heads gawked up like that, looking around. But they don't see anything there. And we could really have something hot down there, and a lot of jobs for people. And large corporations like to come You know, it's the women in the large corporations that want to come to the restaurants and what have you. And we still have the only existing Metzger buildings in the United States, I believe. I know 401 is a, what's the name of that guy that did the 14th Amendment?
Mr. Henderson?
Henderson, right. That's Henderson's first building, 401 Georgia. And we let that go, you know, we're not taking care of our present out and negating our past, which is, but maybe we'll have to. Maybe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, you have up to 2 minutes to respond.
Could you please repeat the question?
You bet. You got to find it here first. Sorry about that. Your time does not start until you start speaking, as I mentioned before. Considering the city's financial situation, what specific measures would you introduce to move toward a more healthy and sustainable economy?
Well, first off, I believe that in the last 2 to 3 years that we've greatly improved our financial situation and have made strides to correct the course of the budget to where it's a sustainable budget. I believe not in a large corporation coming in, you know, with factory jobs. I think that those days are long gone. But I do believe in recruiting micro businesses, computer programmers, shops with 1 or 2 people, smaller businesses. We've got some wonderful properties downtown. Unfortunately, some of those are managed or owned by folks that don't live in town, and they're not encouraged or required to be actively trying to fill those voids. I think that's kind of the future, and with you know, I think we have to be able to embrace a lot of the new businesses which are internet-based, web-based. We've got a wonderful community that's small, that's inexpensive for a small company to come here, and I think it could be vibrant and profitable for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that you both probably have a lot more you'd like to talk about and answer. Unfortunately, we've reached the time limit for this segment, but you each have 2 minutes to complete this segment by saying anything you'd like to say about your candidacy. And Mr. Jackson, we will start with you since you completed the last question. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to this forum. I'd like to continue to serve the community. Again, I believe I bring some fresh ideas and fresh perspectives to the City Council. Yeah, I would appreciate everybody to come out and vote on April 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you.
I couldn't say
Mr.
it.
Davis, you have 2 minutes when you start.
I couldn't say it better.
Okay, well, yeah, that's great. I love it when they keep the answers short. Gentlemen, shake hands. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Wish we had all night, but I don't think you'd stay here all night. And I'd fall asleep, I think, probably after a while. So thank you very much, and good luck to you both. I'd now like to invite Second Ward candidates Miles Neff and Robert Jennings to take a seat on the stage. They're already shaking hands. That's always a good sign. I don't have to tell them to do it. Love that.
We used to work together.
Good deal. Well, thank you. One of the things I didn't do tonight that I usually do, you don't see nameplates down here. That's my fault. Sorry about that. So, but I think you know who they are, right? Mr. Jenny, you may start when you're ready. You have up to 3 minutes to introduce yourself and say what you'd like to do if elected.
Okay. Basically, I started my career in law enforcement. All total, I have 43 years in law enforcement. I started in St. Louis County as a St. Louis County police officer. I served the city of Des Peres for 27 years as a public safety officer, performing police, fire, and EMS duties. I held every position within that department except for that of Director of Public Safety. I spent 27 years there, and after that I took on the challenge of going to the city of Berkeley, Missouri as its first white police chief in approximately 25 years. I spent 7 years at the city of Berkeley as the chief of police. Unfortunately, during that tenure, I served under a city manager that was taken off by the FBI for various crimes, and he wound up being sentenced. They brought in a new city manager who felt that I was responsible for the demise of this particular city manager, and he made it perfectly clear to me that he wanted to see me gone. So at that time, I started looking around. I noticed an advertisement for a city administrator for the city of Louisiana. I applied for that position. I was interviewed and I was hired. I then served 7 years for the city as city administrator and a couple interim police chief jobs at the same time for the city. Served under Mayor Giltner and Mayor Wallace. Mayor Niedner came in. He had a different direction that he wanted to take, which didn't include me, so he chose to remove me from office. And as of this point, I've been here a total of 10 years now. A lot of people expected me to put my tail between my legs and run back to St. Louis. However, I chose not to. I have stayed. As I said, I've been here 10 years, and currently I am half owner of Fowler Lumber Company.
Thank you very much. Mr. Neff, you have up to 3 minutes to introduce yourself and explain what you'd like to do if elected.
Thank you. Born in Hannibal, lived in Louisiana my entire life. My family's have been citizens of Louisiana there, for generations. Went to high school in Louisiana, of course. I own a business in Louisiana now, Fat Boys Restaurant. One thing that I have for this town is passion. I want to see it flourish again. I want to see our downtown district come back to life. I want to have a downtown district that my children can walk down and go into stores and enjoy themselves and feel safe doing so. And without having that, I want to keep my family here. But I want to keep them here. I want to raise them here because this is a beautiful town, and I want to help bring more tourists to our town. That's one thing that's going to help this town thrive, is tourism coming in. I was law enforcement in Louisiana for 2.5 years. I was law enforcement in Lincoln County, actually transport officer in Lincoln County for 2.5 years. Left there to come to Louisiana, and I enjoyed every moment of working for the city of Louisiana. It's a great city to work for. The citizens are one-of-a-kind people. You can go anywhere in Pike County, and people in Louisiana are just a little bit different. They're a little bit special, and I think they're great people, and I want to do my best to better their community.
Thank you very much. I would ask both of you gentlemen to speak directly into the microphones, please. We do have some people who are a little bit harder of hearing, and I'm one of them, but I'm right up here, and I can hear you very well. It's those to the back that may not be able to. We will now go to questions, and these are questions that have been, again, submitted by the media and the audience. So if you hear your question or a combination thereof, you'll know why, and we have some combination questions here. Mr. Neff, you will get the chance to answer this question first. You will have up to 2 minutes to respond. That time will start when you start talking. The question is, your ward contains a great deal of business and industrial areas. What specifically would you do to encourage greater development?
Right now, I think we have a great opportunity to get more businesses in here with the bridge workers coming in, Georgia Street project coming through. We have more people coming through our town right now than we've had in a long time. With this new bridge coming in, we're going to have more tourists and more traffic coming through our town. I think it's a great opportunity to put smaller businesses in our town. Tourists come through, visit our town. They may drive down Georgia Street and see how beautiful our community is. And want to maybe move here and open a business. Those small businesses in Louisiana is what's going to help us grow. If we can get businesses in those that downtown district, it's going to help us out more than anybody realizes right now. And that's my main goal, is to try to help get businesses in those buildings.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jenny. You have up to 2 minutes to address the same question.
I would say I like the new concept that has been brought forward, the fact that the city went and approached it from the direction of making a unified economic developer. I like that idea. I like the concept that the first thing that they should do would be to go out and meet and greet with the businesses that are currently here at this point in time, and try and gain some perspective from that approach. Take those ideas and apply them to trying to promote additional businesses to come into the community through websites, through whatever we can do to promote the viability of the city of Louisiana.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jenny, you will get the chance to answer this question first, and then Mr. Neff, you will have time to respond should you choose. The question, Mr. Jenny, is you have an employment discrimination lawsuit pending against the city from your time as an administrator. Will you drop that lawsuit if elected, and if not, why not? You have 2 minutes, sir.
No, I will not drop the lawsuit if elected. From my perspective, and I really don't care to comment on it, the only statement that I will give that is that I was wrongfully discharged under the employee handbook and the precedents that we had in place at that time. It was totally politically motivated. I think I have a lot to offer to the city, given my perspective having been a city administrator. I know what goes on in the city. And I think I would be an asset. I'm not looking to harm the city or take vindictive action against anybody. That is not the case.
Thank you very much. Mr. Neff, you have up to 2 minutes to address the question if you choose.
I'd rather not reply. That's Mr. Jennings.
Okay, then you will get a chance to answer this next question first. And this is a combined question from the audience as well as the media. What budgeting and fiscal experience do you have, and how will you apply that if elected?
With budgeting, I have the experience with running my restaurant, which can be very stressful at times, trying to make sure that the budgeting stays on course, and I have enough money to pay my employees, pay all my overhead, to restock, to satisfy my customers. And I actually spend every day, 7 days a week, multiple hours, working on my budget to make sure that I can keep my business going.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jenny, you have up to 2 minutes to address the question.
This will be short and sweet. I ran the city for nearly 8 years under 2 different administrations.
Thank you very much.
And there were,
I'm sorry.
if I may say, after I departed, there were reserves in place, and that can be determined if people would take the time to look at the 2013 audit.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, sir, you did not.
Mr. Jenny, you will get the chance to answer this question first, and it is this, and you will have up to 2 minutes to respond. Blighted properties are a big problem. This is an audience question. Blighted properties are a big problem. Do you have a plan to demolish these properties or to find owners?
I believe it's a concerted effort. In some properties, you're going to have to take corrective action to bring these properties down. Some of these properties that are existing right now are just beyond repair. 402 is a perfect example. The last time I was in that building, and I was the one to tarp the roof. Getting up there, I had to take the bucket truck to get up to the roof to put the tarps on it. The entire first floor and the second floor are inside in the basement. There is no way that that building can possibly be saved. So under circumstances like that, they need to come down. One of my biggest concerns is, and it leads to the blighting, and that is the number of junk properties that we have, an abundance of junk vehicles and trucks and everything else that you can imagine sitting right in front of your face as you go down 79, or you go down south on 79. I won't name names. I think everybody knows who they are, but we need to enact ordinances that gives the city the power to address those properties. And I think that can be done.
Thank you very much. Mr. Neff, you have up to 2 minutes to respond to the question.
Repeat the question.
Yes. Blighted properties are a big problem. Do you have a plan to demolish these properties or fine owners?
I don't think there should be any plan to demolish. You hear it? Still can't hear it? It's about to touch my lips. I don't think there should be any plan to demolish anybody's property. I think there should be any given chance for somebody to fix their property. I'm all about historical properties. I love historical things. I love our old community. But there is a point that we have to realize that saving these old buildings is actually doing more harm to us than good. And moving forward and bettering our community may consist of tearing down some of these older buildings and maybe putting something in their place. I know we don't have any ordinances in place right now regarding tearing down old buildings. That I honestly think that some of the landowners should be accountable for it. Maybe a monthly fee that they have to pay, a monthly fine. If the longer their building is falling down and it's not being fixed or it's not being rented, maybe we can charge somebody $20 a month. That's all they can afford. But get something out of the owners that are not paying attention to these buildings that are falling down, or these individuals that have these junk properties. These I like to say junk properties. I don't think anybody's property should be called junk, but these old cars out on South 79, a lot of them probably go to the junkyard. Maybe somebody should approach that individual and ask him if he needs help getting them out to bin versus. He's an older individual. Maybe he needs some assistance doing so. And you know, I may approach him and do that myself, because nobody's going to get it done besides him, because it's his property and he may need the help doing so. And that's what I'm here for, to help. So.
Thank you very much. This will be the last question of the evening, or for this segment, and Mr. Neff, you will get the chance to answer it first. What is your #1 priority if elected? #1
priority would, honestly, is to continue going forward how we are. Our community is moving forward right now. We're having new businesses come in. We're having a new bridge put in. Georgia Street's being refinished or being redone. I want to help continue moving forward. I would like to, like I said, I would like to see our downtown district flourish again one day. It may not happen in my lifetime, but I'd like to see it happen in my children's lifetime. I would like to move towards the future, and we're not doing that. We are actually currently doing that. It's something I don't feel like has happened for a very long time. So that's something I would like to continue to do, is moving forward with our community to better our community.
Mr. Jenny, you have 2 minutes to answer the question.
Repeat it, please.
Yes, what is your #1 priority if elected?
Stabilizing budgetary expenditures, making sure that we've got all the appropriate facts to determine whether or not these expenditures should be made, making sure that we have the appropriate feasibility studies in place. Having been involved with the city infrastructure and having had, I've got DNR certification as in distribution and sewage pipes and that, and I know the city's infrastructure quite well. It seems to me that some of the bids that we have gotten regarding the cost to replace some of these items, from my perspective, are just not realistic, and I want to make sure that we got the appropriate figures in front of us before we make decisions on where we're going to start and how we're going to move forward.
Thank you very much. We will now go to the summary of your campaigns. And Mr. Jenny, you will get to start. You have 2 minutes to summarize your campaign and tell the public why you should be elected.
I feel it based in again, this is kind of short and sweet, and it's pretty simplistic. It's given the fact that I spent those years under 2 different administrations, performing a myriad of jobs, that I have the experience that whoever the new mayor winds up being can call upon and utilize that experience that I garnered during my tenure under Mayor Giltner and under Mayor Wallace.
Thank you very much. Mr. Neff, you have up to 2 minutes to summarize your campaign and tell people why you should be elected.
To start off, it's because I have passion. I care about our community. Number one, I care about our community. I think that I'm a younger generation. I have new, fresh ideas. From what you all know about my restaurant, you know where it started off, in the small little shack that it was on South 79. And I think I've made it flourish. I think I've grown. I think I've came up with ideas that has helped that business grow, and I think I can do the same for our community. I think that we need some younger ideas. We need some new ideas, a new way of thinking, a new way to build our community to the future.
Thank you very much. Let's give them a hand, gentlemen. Shake hands and good luck. I now call up 3rd Ward candidates Chuck Hoffman and Tim Carter. Gentlemen. I saw Tim here. Where is he? Tim was here earlier. Where are you, Tim? Tim, come on up. Shake hands, gentlemen.
Oh, yeah. How you doing? I'm doing fine.
All right. Mr. Hoffman, you will have up to 3 minutes to introduce yourself and say what you'd like to do if elected. And please talk into the microphone, sir.
My wife and I came here from international education. We've been all over the world in countries that you would not believe how they are run. It was quickly that we saw that at least people respected each other in this country. When I was a child, my father comes from a very conservative religion, being his grandfather being Quaker, and they carry on a church a little bit differently than many other denominations. They were very responsible during the Civil War for making sure that a lot of people got to the promised land. And what we do, what my family does, I do not follow the Quaker religion. I grew up in a different denomination. But what my family does is they have always been very involved in their community. I remember countless afternoons that I spent my time on the telephone. We had a little crank telephone, and you 3 shorts along, and you got one neighbor, and 4 shorts, and another denomination, you got another neighbor. And I remember my mother sitting at the telephone, this little thing on the wall, and telling everybody that there was a special event for another neighbor who had a fire. And that is how I was taught in my family that I should treat my community. I should become a person in my community that is making sure that things are done. People are watched to make sure that they have no problems. I have seen many of you on my pergola, and we have talked about issues that were of concern to people in this community. And I felt, as my parents had taught me, that I was responsible for making sure that people were taken care of. I'll stop right now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carter. You have up to 3 minutes to explain or to introduce yourself and explain what you'd like to do if elected, and that time will start when you start speaking.
All right. Well, thank you, Brent, for hosting or moderating this event, and the Daughters of the American Revolution and the American Legion. It's very important to get out and meet the candidates. I didn't know if I was going to make it tonight. I just got off work. I currently work for Boeing Manufacturing down in St. Louis. Been there for 8 years. I retired as a fire chief in Hannibal, Missouri. I was with them for approximately 19 years. Also worked with the Marion County Ambulance District since I'm certified paramedic. I'm certified firefighter 1, 2, investigator, inspector, building inspector, numerous things, anything that's related to the fire science field, in which I got a degree in that as well. Experience that I have from the municipality up in Hannibal, dealing with a $4 million budget, relatively small, really when you're talking about municipality. But I've learned through that experience, working with other department heads and working with city officials, politicians, and I say that with a straight face because we know how the political atmosphere is in the country now. One of the things that I want to try to bring to the position of the 3rd Ward councilman is an interjection of diversity. And that's varying opinion. Without vetting varying opposition views, one can't really come to a good, sound decision. If everyone kind of just pulls along the same way, yeah, the wagon goes real smooth, but if it pulls you the wrong direction down the wrong path, it'll easily derail or get stuck. So what I'm looking at doing, we moved to the city of Louisiana approximately spring of 2012. We bought a building downtown, relatively inexpensive, good purchase. Since then, we've bought a house further out, Georgia Street, changed wards. I was on City Council, Ward 1, until I made that move. Since then, we bought other property in town. We've bought into a local business in town, so not only do we have roots in business within downtown, we've invested in other businesses within downtown and also the community. I'm just happy to be able to serve at any capacity, whether I'm elected or not.
Thank you very much. I think that was our first yellow card of the night there, but it's the second one. Okay, good. Where's Bob Ringhausen? He'll tell me I made a mistake. Mr. Carter, you'll get the chance to answer this question first. You'll have 2 minutes, sir. The question is this. Economic development is one of the most important issues for Louisiana. The Uniform Economic Development Council was established recently, and a director was named. How do you plan to help bolster the efforts of this organization? You have 2 minutes, sir.
Well, listen to everyone's ideas. For one, what are we bringing to the table? So, as a councilman, bolstering that is to vet any of the options that the council may bring before us and weigh it out with what our community wants, with my constituents. All right, does it fall in line? Does it look like it's pulling us in a good direction? So how do I bolster that? well, positively, you know, we support it. Anything that we bring forth from the city, we bring as wholeheartedly as positive, as positively as we can. So, other than that, is to get and garner support from my constituents. And if there's anything that's discerning about the proposition, whatever the UEDC may bring forth, I'll share that with the constituents, and likewise with the constituents to the UEDC.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hoffman, you have up to 2 minutes to respond to the question as well.
Okay. About in the mid 1925 span of time, a group of people got together and they formed a committee that built that bridge down there. They built it for $1 million. Check in your newspaper and find out exactly what the price of the bridge is going to be these days. Yes, the bridge went bankrupt several times, and it had to be bailed out, but it made it. That same year, they built the hospital here. So we've had a history of building in the past. I don't know why we can't get ourselves together and do the same thing right now. I look at the the new idea of bringing people together to form committees, and I think that's a great way to go.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hoffman, you will get the chance to answer the next question first, and it is this. What measures will you take to grow city reserves? Sorry, I'm going to start that over. What measures will you take to grow city reserves while still providing for Louisiana? You have 2 minutes, sir.
For many, many years, we have been trying to build reserves. And I think that's a great idea. But unfortunately, we don't build streets, we don't build the corrected sewer systems and all of that sort of thing. I think you've got to work on developing a budget so that you can spend some of your money and you can use it for building. I remember I've now been on the city council for 9 years. I remember years that we spent $50,000 on streets. You know, that's nothing. That barely did what we really needed to do to keep the streets in condition that's usable. So I don't look at developing budgets. I want budgets, but I don't think we have to keep putting money in the bank.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carter, you have 2 minutes to answer the question as well.
Yeah, repeat that, please. Brad.
What measures will you take to grow city reserves while still providing for Louisiana?
The measures that I can as a council person is just, it's one vote, right? So the measure that I can take as that one vote is be a voice for the constituents about how we spend our money. We need to operate our city with a budget, and we got to plan accordingly, okay, and operate within that budget. Too many governments nowadays seem to have an endless supply of revenue from somewhere. It amazes me. I've never seen a government go broke. Detroit came close to it. But to build reserves, we have to plan for doing that. So that requires us to prioritize where we do spend our monies. What's the priority for Louisiana? You know, is it our water system? Is it our streets? Is it the beautification of the town? What is it? Is it our salaries for our city employees? What is it? Is it the fire service? Is it the police department? You know, those are things that has to be prioritized, and everyone has to be addressed. And doing so, we have to keep in the back of our mind, some of that has to be put back into a rainy day fund, our reserves. Now, if we can't do that, then we really, as a city, can't operate effectively. Any other family in the community operates with a budget, and we try to plan for it. But when revenues are down 7% this year or last year from the previous year, it kind of makes it hard to budget accordingly. Then you start robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carter, you will get the chance to answer this question first, and it is this. What will you do in terms of transparency to keep the public informed? You have 2 minutes, sir.
There's been strides done over the last 4 or 5 years. I gotta give credit to Mayor Neener on his online skills and communicating with the public in that form. The paper's done a good job, you know, communicating to the public as well. What we don't see is this. We don't see this at City Council when important issues are brought up. The location where the City Council conducts its meetings is poor, very poor. It's not very inviting for the community to come and witness what's being decided in their behalf. So one of the things I would love to try to get the council to do, and the council has addressed it in the past about the possibilities of revamping or relocating to a better form or a better location, and I would strive to do that. I would like the city, whoever's elected as mayor, to continue on those down that path that Mayor Neener has done as far as communicating online and with the newspapers as well.
Mr. Hoffman, you have 2 minutes, sir.
Yes, I agree with Mr. Carter. I think our newspaper does an excellent job of informing us. One of the things that ticks me off every time I go to city council meeting is I have to buzz myself in. And that's like telling me, I don't want you here. I think there should be open, I don't know, maybe during the minutes of the meeting, it is open, but I have no feeling that I really want it there. So, that's
Thank you very much. Mr. Hoffman, we've reached the end, or Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Carter, we've reached the end of this segment, but you will now have a chance to both speak about your campaigns and why you should be elected. Mr. Hoffman, you have 2 minutes.
Ward 3 has 425 registered voters. That's a heck of a lot of people to be representing. And I feel that one of the things I have is that if you come to me, and several of you have done that, with a problem, I will go support you. I will find out what the problem is and talk about it. I think people need to have people that they can go to and do as my parents did, which was to represent the people in their community. So I think that's all I want to say.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carter, you have up to 2 minutes to summarize your campaign and tell people why you should be elected.
Well, first of all, I love our community. My wife and I wouldn't have moved here and invested here if we didn't love the community. There seems to be a lot of diversity within the community, especially when it comes around election time. However, I embrace that. I mean, really, we need to respect everyone's views, and we really need discerning, viewpoints shared with everyone in a civil manner, in a civil way. So being here and planting the roots as deep as we planted, we're planning on staying here quite a while. So regardless if I'm elected or not, we're planning on continuing on doing good deeds as best as we know how. And as an elected official, how can I, move forward with that incentive is to do the same thing. Give examples of what we've tried to do in the community. It's all kind of personal, but it's a beautification of downtown, our riverfront, all this. Everyone wants this. I can only do what's within my means. As an elected official, me personally asking for your vote to become an elected official, I'd want to carry on and do the same thing as an elected official. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, shake hands, and good luck to you both. Let's give them a hand.
All right, Mr. Hoffman.
Well, we've been all sitting here for an hour, and some of us have been standing, but most of you have been sitting there, and I haven't heard a single cell phone go off. So reward yourselves by taking a 10-minute break, and then we'll be back with the mayor's race. Please start finding your seats. We will get started shortly with the mayor's race. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We will now proceed to the mayor's race. I'll ask the candidates to shake hands and sit down, and we'll begin. The candidates, of course, are Marvin Brown and Joseph Minor. Mr. Brown, you will have 3 minutes to introduce yourself and say what you'd like to do if elected.
Okay, so is this loud enough?
No, go the other way.
Is it on now? Okay. Okay. Well, I figure we're going to get lots of questions about challenges that the city has. So I thought I would start out by talking about the city's assets, the things we have to build on. You know, and that starts with the people. Pam and I, we've moved around quite a bit for my work, and when we settled here, I think what we discovered was there's never been a place where we felt this welcome and at home than we have here, and the people have been great, and we just love it for that reason. Try to talk louder, my wife says. So, you know, and all those good people manifest themselves into a lot of really good organizations, a lot of good opportunities to participate. You know, there's clubs, there's civic groups, there's churches, schools, the city government itself. And, you know, most of the people we've met has been by getting involved in those kind of opportunities, and it's been really rewarding for us. You know, looking at assets, the city's got great historic buildings, got the murals, got the big cemetery out by the river there. You know, those are things that are going to attract tourists, and they're also going to attract new residents. And, you know, we should never, I think, downplay the importance of those kinds of attractions. I think we should take care of them and realize them as important assets. I sit on the Y board. We've got a Y that rivals any in the country, frankly, and a hospital that is well staffed, is well equipped. I can't think of another small town that has those kinds of facilities in one place. And we've got businesses that have been here forever, that are stable, that provide employment. And sure, you know, we'd like to get more. We'd welcome more. We'll go looking for more. But the ones we've got here now are good businesses. And this is an affordable place to live, frankly. You know, we looked all over the state, and the house that we bought here, I guess, you know, it's a house we love dearly, and I'm thinking it probably would have cost about 3 times this much if we had decided to live in the city rather than out in a small town like this. We like to be outdoors, and it's all right here at your fingertips. You know, you've got the river, you've got public lands to the north, public lands to the south. You know, we've seen pelicans and bald eagles without ever leaving town, and that's great as far as I'm concerned. And then, you know, finally, the town has huge potential. It truly does. It's got all the things, you know, that I just mentioned, and it's also, you know, a north-south, east-west crossroads for rail and for roads. It's got barge facilities. It's got a new bridge coming. And I'll say again, it's got great people. And if I get a chance...
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Your time is up. Mr. Minor, you have 3 minutes to address the audience about your campaign and what you'd like to do if elected.
I think we're going to answer a lot of questions because I'm a pretty brief talker. My name is Joseph Minor. I've been a lifelong resident of Louisiana, Missouri. I joined the Marines at 17. I retired from the military July of 2016. It kind of freed up a little bit of my time. I joined a couple of civic organizations. I had been extremely busy in the past. My timeline has loosened up, and I want to give selfless service to the folks here. Running for this office has been a roller coaster of emotion and very humbling. And sometimes the genesis for debates like these, apologize, a little nervous up here. Sometimes the genesis for hollow promises are born in debates like these. I will be answering these debate questions as clearly as I can with the information that I have and nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now proceed. Before we do proceed, I'm going to apologize for the sound system. This is a new sound system we're trying, and it's obviously not going to be a sound system we continue with when we do these things again. So, yeah, yeah, the reverb is a problem. So what I'm going to do, Mr. Brown, I'm going to give you this microphone, and I'm going to use that microphone because I am a loudmouth. All right. I think that will end up being better. Mr. Minor, you get the chance to answer the first question. You will have 2 minutes to respond, sir. And the question is this. The Pike County Commission is placing a tax increase on the August ballot to finance a centralized 911 system. Some of the details still must be worked out, but what is your position on 911 centralization, and explain why you are for or against it. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Having been somebody that has actually answered a life-threatening 911 call, it was about 2 years ago, 2010. I had to take a call where a man was shooting at his family in Frankfurt. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. I was by myself. I was actually at home getting off shift. I put my boots on, started traveling north. I started traveling north as fast as I could. I get there, and I have to make a decision to confront this guy by myself or wait for backup. If we had a centralized 911, what you're going to have is an agreement amongst the cities that specific types of calls like this, an officer that would be on shift and not have to come on shift could respond and help you. And it's the same way if you have a family member that's having a heart attack and you have somebody that's close in the area, general proximity, a centralized 911 is going to know what assets they have on at the appropriate time. So I'm way for it.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, you will now have 2 minutes to respond to the same question.
Sure. Well, Louisiana has a 911 system now, and it does serve the residents here fine. But I understand that there's a greater need out in the county, and there's been a plan crafted to provide for that need, which I think is good. The proposal right now is it'll go on the ballot in August, I believe, and represent a sales tax to fund a building and an operation, and hopefully meet everyone's needs. What I hope we can do out of that decision is maintain Louisiana's as the rollover to the county's 911. There's going to be times when that system is busy, when people are on the phone answering other calls, and you're still going to need action somewhere. I'd like to see our system maintained here to be that redundancy that you really need for 911.
That's what I've done. It's not working.
Hey, Marvin, we might have to just yell. That's what I'm thinking. Hey, this is not working.
I think it's just the sound system is just not working properly. So I think what we need to do is just talk. You want to just talk? Okay. This one working fine? All right. All right. I promise next time we'll have the old one back. Good test. Mic check. That's way high. Yeah. Testing 1, 2, 3. Hello, test. Okay.
People didn't hear you.
Only if your opponent agrees.
Go ahead.
Okay. I don't talk real loud anyway, so
There you go.
I'm not a loud talker anyway.
Okay, this one I think is your best bet now.
What I said before, okay, all right. What I said before was, we've got a 911 system here in Louisiana now, and it functions, it meets our needs, but I understand that the county doesn't have a system that meets their needs, and they need one. And the proposal is to put a half or 5/8 cent sales tax on the August ballot to fund that, to fund the building, to fund the staffing, and I think that's a good idea. What I would like to see, because I think in general these systems need redundancy. There's going to be times when that system's going to be busy, folks are going to be active, and there's still going to be other calls coming in. I'd like to see for Louisiana system to be retained as that redundant part of the system.
Again, my apologies. I do think we'll try to correct things next time. Let's move on to other questions. And Mr. Brown, you will get to answer this one first. And the question is this. How will you continue projects already underway? How will you continue and prioritize projects already underway, such as the complex Georgia Street corridor?
Well, yeah, that project's definitely underway. In fact, I think we'll probably be starting to see construction equipment in a couple of 3 weeks there. And, that particular project is already prioritized for that matter. It's going to start below ground with storm sewer, sanitary sewer, water system, and then ultimately get to the top and regrade, and I believe sidewalks all the way out to about the hospital on the south side of the city. So that's underway. Then beyond that, you have to start thinking about how you get to the rest of the city. Because as far as I'm concerned, Georgia Street's done. I mean, it's not, but it's all decided and it's ready to go. So how do you get to the rest of it? We started kicking some of this around in council the other night. I know Bart and Kelly have worked up some figures. It looks like right now, if we were to maintain all the streets to the level that they need maintaining, you're talking about $375,000 a year to keep them at about a 15-year age, to keep them in the condition they need to be. We don't have $375,000 a year. We've maybe got 50 that we can allocate towards that right now. And so it goes back to a question of, where do you start generating more revenue? And I think we got to look real hard at that question.
Thank you very much. Mr. Miner, you have up to 2 minutes to answer the question, sir.
The plan itself, from what I read that the mayor put out, I mean, it's an eloquent plan. It's put in place. But I would start at finding out who is buying our bonds to fund the project, where we're at in selling the bonds, if our local banks have purchased any of the bonds, if not, why not? Find out what we're going to do if our sales tax keeps going down. It's gone down, I believe, the last 2 years. What are we going to do? What's our umbrella? How are we going to function to a committed construction project going forward if these things go down? I'll agree with Mr. Brown that we need to find new sources of revenue, but we have to have a clean nest first. Maybe stepping into something else, but some of our older buildings that we have, I've actually done work with the municipality and getting an old building taken down. It's a very hard thing to do. We have to have a clean landing pad for a business to come through and say, hey, I'd like to put a business there. Because if you have an old dilapidated school, you may touch on this question in a little bit, but you have an old dilapidated school, it looks like something that belongs in a better part of Detroit, Michigan. Walls are falling in. You're wanting to put a business in town, you drive by that, it's not going to be attractive to you because you know that eyesore is going to be there. I have ideas to get rid of it, and I would accept and take any ideas that would be good to get rid of an old building like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Miner, you will get the chance to answer this question first, and it is this. Louisiana's combined sales tax is almost 8.5%. That's higher than 91% of Missouri municipalities. Should the sales tax be lowered? And please explain your answer.
Of course, I'm going to say at any time sales taxes should be lower. But at the same time, I believe that the tax that has been raised to fund this project, I don't know if it has a drop date on it. I don't know that, but I would like to find that out. And if it's a 20-year drop date, then that's good. Because I think that what that'll do is actually make it to where we can effectuate a payment plan to get this paid for. Most taxes that are raised and voted on do have a drop date on them. I say again, I don't know if this one does. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brown, you have up to 2 minutes, sir.
Of course, you know, out of that 8.5%, there's only, I think, 2.25% is city sales tax. The rest of it's county, the rest of it's state. So, you know, think of it in those terms first, I think. The recently passed 0.5% and the recently passed 0.25% are not sunsetted, but they're pretty much dedicated to paying off the bonds that are going to be issued in order to fund the work on Georgia Street. So they're going to need to be around for at least 20 years probably to do that. That's about the payment schedule that's in there right now. You know, I think realistically, yeah, everybody wants to lower taxes, but you know, I read a book way back when it said there ain't no such thing as a free lunch either. You know, you've got to, if you want things, you got to pay for them. And you know, this is something I think everybody wants, which is better streets, better sewers, better water distribution systems, and it costs money. I mean, they're not free. So at this point, we got to pay for them. You know, the only way I can see sales tax ever getting reduced is if, in fact, we sell more things within the city and generate more tax from more businesses. Then we could reduce the sales tax. But right now, we're just not in a position to do that.
Thank you very much. The next question is for you to start, Mr. Brown, and it is this. Once the new Champ Clark Bridge is completed, the focus will be on upgrading Highway 54 to a shared 4-lane to Mexico. However, the Hannibal bypass may take the limelight. How will you work to make sure Highway 54 upgrade remains a regional priority?
Well, actually, this morning I was meeting with the Highway 54 Coalition. I've been serving as the Mayor Pro Tem. I sit in for the current mayor when he can't make it. The Highway 54 Coalition is made up of people in Adair, Pike County, mayors all along the route from here to Mexico. And they regularly get reports from Congressman Graves' office, Senator McCaskill's office, Senator Blunt's office, and continually are pushing to find the funds to fund that kind of an upgrade to Highway 54. I don't know exactly what you mean by, you know, Hannibal getting the money or whatever. What we've talked about is that there are infrastructure bills in Congress. We get updated on those regularly by the congressmen and senators, representatives, that could make that money available. There's other funding sources federally that are out there that can conceivably be tapped. I don't see where they'd be starting on an expansion of lanes in Highway 54 anytime in the next few years, but it's something that I think is a possibility, you know, several years down the road. And, you know, right now, what it sounds like, the more realistic upgrade would be a 3-lane, a shared passing lane, rather than a 4-lane, something that's a little more affordable.
Thank you very much. Mr. Miner, you have up to 2 minutes to respond.
The way I understand it, the road's going to be a shared 3-lane all the way from Mexico, Missouri to here. We are the last stop in that upgrade in the shared 3-lane road. I spoke to Carolyn Wisecarver about this. She said there are things called spur grants, or a grant that is additional to what the project is. We're not going to know what we're asking for until we get in and ask them for it. We would have to go to MoDOT and say, what are our opportunities? What can we ask for? And I'll segue into this. It'll be great to have Ms. Wisecarver and Ms. Neff both on the same team with me when we're asking what opportunities we can take for the 54 expansion.
Thank you very much. You get the chance to answer this question first, Mr. Minor, and it is this. Do you plan to continue the efforts of our current mayor or develop your own strategy and start over? You have 2 minutes, sir.
I think it would be silly to negate what this man has done. He's done some good work for the city. He's put some projects in place. I like the workforce development that he's done. And no, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to take what he's got, add what I have to it, and we'll continue on.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brown, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Sure. I mean, Bart has done some really good things, and such as the infrastructure project along Georgia that needs to be completed. The workforce study is a good thing. At the behest of council, I've been working on a comprehensive community-wide plan, and it goes beyond a lot of that and tries to deal with a whole set of elements that are going to make Louisiana a viable, successful community down the road. It's a plan that I've shared with a number of people. We were planning to have a joint council and planning and zoning meeting last week, but got fouled up on the posting requirements for that. We're going to have it on March 29th. Anybody who would like to sit in and listen is welcome to. We will be discussing, that plan as it stands right now with both the council and the Planning and Zoning Commission. And it includes everything. It includes our natural resources, it includes housing, it includes economic development, it includes city services, trying to think of what else. It's truly meant to be comprehensive because when you start dealing with all these things, they're all interconnected in some fashion. Workforce relates to the city's wealth, which relates to the city's ability to get things done. So you need a comprehensive plan that works to connect all those different elements, and that's what we've been working on. When I agreed to do it, I told council that it's got to be a living, breathing document. It's something that, if I were elected, would be basically a significant part of the council's agenda every single month, and that's how I think we would implement it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Minor, I'm sorry. I knew I'd make that mistake. Where's Bob when I need him? Mr. Brown, this question goes to you first, and then Mr. Minor will have a chance to respond. Mr. Brown, you currently serve as president of the Louisiana School Board, and Mr. Minor, you are currently a Pike County Sheriff's Deputy. Do either of you plan to keep these positions if elected mayor, and do you see any potential conflict? Please explain your reasoning.
Well, I am going back on the school board. I don't plan to be president the next year. We've been talking to different other members, and I think it's time that one of them got to be president because that's a better opportunity to work directly with Dr. Smith, and I think all the board members need that down the road. So I will be on the school board, but I won't be president. And I don't see any real issues about conflict. The school board doesn't take positions on things that the council decides. Council doesn't take positions on things that the school board decides. They're totally different budget streams. There's no way that the city can access the school board's budget. There's no way the school board can access the city's budget. I just don't see any opportunity for conflict. In fact, what I see is lots of opportunity for coordination, and that's why I'm kind of interested in still doing both.
Mr. Minor, you have up to 2 minutes to respond, sir.
The position I have as a detective here in the county actually makes me mingle with people. So I'm going to be out and amongst folks, and I'm going to know what they need. So I can't see anywhere that there would be a conflict between my full-time job and serving as mayor, which will probably end up being a full-time job. Thank you.
You get a chance to answer this question first, Mr. Minor. You might as well, because it's along the same lines. Do you see the mayor's job as a full-time position, or with Louisiana having a city administrator, is the mayor's role more of a part-time function?
I know as chief of police of Frankfort, I took phone calls around the clock, and that's going to happen here. And I'm sure the mayor will probably attest that people bother him all through the evening, all the time. So I'm going to be open to calls all the time, just like I normally am. I think it will end up being another full-time job, but I'm used to that type of environment. So that being said, I don't think it's going to be a problem in any way.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, you have up to 2 minutes to respond.
Yeah, so I agree. I don't think it's a full-time job. I think it's a job where you need to be available when there's opportunities there to represent the city. I think you need to be available certainly for council meetings and other issues like that. I don't think you need to sit in the office every day because we do have a city administrator there. I still have a consulting business that keeps me busy about half time or less. And I think, I can see myself working on that business in the mornings and showing up in City Hall in the afternoons to see what's going on and see if anybody needs to talk to me. But I'm a big believer in making sure that people get delegated to do their jobs, and I wouldn't try to do Kelly's, wouldn't try to do the city city treasurers or the city clerk's job, there, but I would, supervise and hold them accountable for doing that, and I think you don't have to be there every minute of every day to do that.
Stay standing because I've got an audience question coming your way. You get a chance to answer it first. How will you transition into the mayor's position?
Pretty easily, I think. I've been on council for a couple of years. I'm familiar with the workings of city council. I'm familiar with the people that work at City Hall. I've served on the ordinance committee. I'm chairing the finance committee, so I understand the budget very well. Some days, probably more than what some people would even want, because I can ask a lot of questions. But I think the transition would be very smooth, just because I've been kind of right in the thick of it for a couple of years now.
Thank you, Mr. Minor. You have 2 minutes to respond.
I've never had anything smooth. So it's going to be a testing transition. I'm not going to sit up here and pretend I know everything, omniscient, omnipotent. I don't know everything. So I'm going to take it one step at a time, and I'm going to take the advice of some mayors that have been mayor before in the past, and reach out to the folks that sit in the offices and have whatever help I can get at the time. That's it.
Thank you. Stay standing because you get the next question. And you have 2 minutes to respond, sir. Some argue that historic buildings are worth saving. Others say tear them down. What do you say?
I think they're worth saving until they become a danger. And I'll talk about the old school again. It's near and dear to a lot of people here in town, but if you drive up and look at it right now, the east wall is out of it. The roof is falling in on it. It's leaking debris out onto Jackson Street. If it's worth saving, that's probably not going to be for me to decide. That would be the property owner and the city to work with the property owner to decide if that's what they're going to do.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, you have up to 2 minutes to respond.
Yeah, I think old buildings are definitely worth saving until they reach a point where it's just not economically wise thing to do. We had a long debate about 401 Georgia Street. We're kind of getting set to tear it down right away. Some folks came in and wanted to have a chance to try to save it. So I think the council was real wise to back off and give them several months to see if they could come up with the dollars and the assurance to actually go in there and stabilize 401, because that is, like I said in my opening statement, historical buildings are an asset here in the city. And so I think anytime we can save them, we should. Unfortunately, the folks that were working on 401 couldn't really bring everything together in a way that provided the kind of assurance that we were going to be able to save that building. So it's coming down. I think the old school needs to come down. We have plans through the school board that once we move the bus barn, the Meriwether school is going to come down, because that's right on 54, and it needs to look better right there on 54 than it does right now. So some of those things, yeah, they need to go. But I have all the respect in the world for historic buildings. Our house was built in 1890, and that's why we bought it, because we like historic buildings.
Stay standing because you get the next question first. And this is an audience question. Can you speak to the infrastructure plan and if the projections and funding look to be on target? If not, where is the plan going forward?
Yeah, I think the projections and the budget are adequate to go forward and provide enough assurances. We've built in some conservatism there with our ability to repay the bonds that are going to be issued to carry out that project. It's been well planned. You know, we starting with the ACE folks coming in and looking at all the infrastructure down there. We've staged it, trying to stage it correctly. Yeah, I don't have any reservations at all that we'll be able to complete that Georgia project within budget. So.
Mr. Minor, you have 2 minutes to respond.
I'm not going to know fully until I know what our reserves are and match that up with the spending of the construction cost. You can't spend more than what you have to finish what you have in place. So that being said, if we run out of reserves and we run out of the sales tax because the sales have gone down, how are we going to complete this? That's a question for everybody here. So if we can take the project as far as we can and make it right, that is more important to me rather than go deeply in debt to where you cannot pay your way out of the project.
Thank you. Stay standing, please, because you get the next question first. State figures show that almost 1 in 4 Louisiana residents lives in poverty, and that Pike County has one of the highest percentages of poverty in northeast Missouri. Is there anything that can be done at the city government level to reduce those numbers?
Workforce development. You got to teach people to learn how to roll their sleeves up. When I was a kid, I cleaned houses, baled hay, washed dishes, worked at Tivoli Hills Resort. It's something that children aren't learning today. So we have an environment where people can step out of poverty. And we owe it to them to be able to give them those assets to be able to learn how to effectuate and find a good job.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, you have up to 2 minutes to respond.
Sure. Yeah, we are at the lower end of the economic scale in a lot of ways. The distribution of incomes in this city doesn't mirror the states at all. Generally, lower to middle income is a much higher percentage here than it is even in Pike County or statewide, either one. And, you know, there's the answers to doing something about that are tough. Yeah. First is opportunity. People obviously have to have a chance to work. There are jobs here that go unfilled quite often, so then you've also got to instill in people the importance of working. With Bart's help and through the school, we've implemented a program to kind of reinforce kids in the middle school to get them interested in applying themselves. You know, we've got a close relationship with Pike Lincoln Technical School to try to get folks, you know, who are not inclined to go to college into programs like that. We're trying to see where we can invest greater dollars in the school's parents as teachers program, because I think, you know, having that kind of assistance available to lower income families can bring kids into the school system with a lot higher chance of success. And the same goes for the early childhood program. So we can kind of start building at the base level to deal with some of those issues about folks, being challenged economically.
Thank you. Please stay standing up if you prefer, because you answer this next question first. And reminder, the shorter your answers, the more questions you all get asked. So, what specific, and this goes right to the previous question, what specific measures will you take or endorse to lure jobs and bolster Louisiana's economy? And is the recent hiring of an economic director a good start?
The recent hiring of the economic director was a great start. And what we did in combination with that was bring in a higher level of coordination with the Chamber of Commerce and the Louisiana Convention and Visitors Bureau, so that all three of those can be not working on the same goals, but working on complementary goals by having that higher level of communication. So I think that's going to help. You know, we've got a booklet that describes all of Louisiana's assets right now in terms of water supplies, electric supplies. You know, we've got a good base of information to sell the city. You're not gonna go out there and just grab a company and say, come here. But if you're ready for companies that express an interest, then you pursue them aggressively. You make them as welcome as you possibly can. You keep touching them on a regular basis until they do decide to do something. And those are all things that the Economic Development Director can do. We actually haven't, the comprehensive plan I talked about, we haven't completed the economic portion of that yet because I've been kind of waiting to not have to for Maggie to kind of get her feet on the ground before we jump in there and ask her to start working pretty hard on that part of the community plan, but that's going to come too.
Thank you. Mr. Minor, you have up to 2 minutes to respond.
I'm going to not speak in generalities. I'm going to speak in something specific. I would like to locate the owner of the school, Mrs. Dixon. I don't know where she's at. I think she's in southern Missouri somewhere. Get Maggie and Carolyn Wisecarver and maybe an investor that I would grab and pull, or try to, like Spike Earhart, somebody that builds hotels, somebody that would build something that would attract folks in one room to develop something in that 3-acre area of town.
Thank you very much. You get the chance to answer this first, Mr. Meyer. Louisiana celebrates its bicentennial this year, and big plans are, as you know, are in the works.
Yes.
Is this a chance to make Louisiana shine, or just a waste of time, money, and effort?
I think it's a chance to make Louisiana shine. We're going to spend some money on it that I just learned about last night, which is a good thing. It's good for the folks to rub shoulders and let their hair down and enjoy the city. So, no, it will not be a waste of time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brown, you have up to 2 minutes to respond.
Oh, clearly, yeah, it's a great opportunity to not just make Louisiana shine, but to shine some light on Louisiana, which is really what we want. We want people to know we're here. We want people to know it's a good community, that we've got enthusiastic citizens who are excited about something like a 200-year anniversary and are doing things like the bust and the mayor's ball and the parades and everything that's been planned for that event. Yeah, I think it's not just a time to shine. It's a time to shine a light on us and show people what we've got. So
stay standing. This is the last question before we go to the final wrap-up. Are you committed? And this goes back to Georgia Street. Are you committed to seeing the $4 million upgrade of Georgia Street through to its completion, no matter what? And I'm sorry, please explain your answer.
Yeah, I'm not sure what "no matter what" means, but like I said before, I think the financing is conservative and doable. So I don't see any reason why it's not going to be finished to completion. We've scaled it back from original intentions quite a bit. It's the heavy duty work is probably, unfortunately, only going to be able to come out to about the hospital now. So beyond that, it's going to be more, I forget what they call it, chip and fill, something and fill. Well, it's going to be kind of digging it out and then repaving, mill and fill, that's it. So the project's been scaled back to kind of match the finances that we have available. We're not allocating all of the 1/2 cent and 1/4 cent sales tax to paying off those bonds, so we've got wiggle room to deal with that there. And I don't see any reason why it won't be completed.
Thank you. Mr. Minor, you have up to 2 minutes to respond.
I am for getting the Georgia Street corridor completed as planned, but we need to proceed as we can afford it. I mean, we can't make money up out of nothing. So I am going to apply every resource that I have to get this thing funded and get it pushed through and take it to fruition.
Stay standing because since you both had short answers, we still have some time. And I have one more question here. It's an audience question. You'll have up to 2 minutes to respond. What budgeting experience do you have?
Well, you're beating me up on that one. I do balance my checkbook. But anyway, I've actually had to take accountability of a lot of property. When I was in the Marines, I was the training NCO and property manager. It sounds fancy, but it really isn't. You have to go around and make sure that you have things that are assigned to you, make sure that they're working. To tell you what their value is, I do not know. But as far as budgeting, I'm new to the game.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, you have up to 2 minutes, sir.
So start from here and work backwards. I chair the finance committee now, so I look at the city's budget closely every month. I ask the questions that track where we're at versus last year, and and been kind of a nag about building the reserve back up to a level that it needs to be. Before we moved back to Missouri, I worked as the director of the Oregon Department of Forestry. I was responsible for a budget of about $150 million a year, and I had to go wrangle that out of the legislature every year and make sure it got spent wisely on fire protection, on managing lands, on implementing state laws. Before that, I was general manager of Willamette Industries, Tennessee Timberlands, and was responsible for profitability, budgeting, personnel, the whole smear that goes with running a corporate timberland. And before that, I was the chief of forestry for the Missouri Department of Conservation. And again, budgeting, administration, personnel, all those things that go with being a chief administrator were kind of what I did all the time.
Thank you. We've now come to the end of the question and answer session. The candidates will each have 2 minutes to summarize their campaigns and say why they should be elected mayor. Mr. Brown, we will start with you. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Okay. I think the main thing I want to do is say how humbling it's been to have so many people offer support and help. It's just amazing. I can't tell you campaigning's been fun. It's because I'm not naturally an extroverted kind of a person, but I've got myself out there, and when I did, I've met some really good people. Pam and I are always amazed at the number of folks that have come up and offered us encouragement, and I just thank every single one of you for that humbling experience. It's been great. If I'm mayor, I'll do my best to represent you well. I mean, I've got the skills, the background to do a job like this in administration and personnel and public policy. Those, it doesn't sound real exciting to a lot of you folks, I'm sure, but it's what I've done for 20-something years. So I think I can just kind of ease right into those sets of responsibilities here and apply a lot of knowledge to helping the city as much as I can.
Thank you very much. Mr. Minor, you have up to 2 minutes to summarize your campaign and tell people why they should vote for you as mayor. Fair enough?
As mayor, I will never look down my nose when speaking to a citizen nor tolerate an employee of the city who would do so. Trust and confidence will be reestablished within our water department, police department, and all city employees will learn that the City Hall works for the citizens and not the other way around. Upon taking office, I will announce a true state of the city, and where all citizens will know where our beautiful city stands fiscally and physically. The people want a new government they can trust, so I will be offering selfless service and not showmanship as mayor. And I thank you all for putting up with such a terrible public speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we go, first one for me. Hand clap also to the American Legion Post 370 and the Daughters of the American Revolution. I'd like to recognize Mayor Bart Neudner, who is the reason these two gentlemen are up here, is because he's leaving us without a mayor, at least for a little while. Until April 3rd, right, Mayor? And finally, the lady of the evening, the one who's been keeping track of everything, so I didn't have to, and I could make mistakes like I usually do on my own without having to blame somebody else. She's right down front. Liz Wallace has been our time. Thank you, God bless you, and good night. And watch it on Tribcast, because the sound is better.
I'm serious about that. If you do get elected, do you know who Spike Earhart is?
He owns a lot of hotels up and down Highway 61. Sweet guy, really nice person. And if I have to, I will help him. Mr. Dixon owns that property. It's in errors and taxes and all this other stuff. Well, if we could figure out a way for her to just let us have it, right?
Well, we can take it now.
I get it, but it would be a lot easier if she quit. It's not a big fight. Because what if somebody develops it and she wants to come back on? You know what I mean? So if we can get that to her, get that from her, I'll get us a meeting. I will get us a meeting with Spike. But and then Carolyn, she said that there's E&R grants to get the asbestos out. That would be good. Well, that would be a lot cheaper to take it.
Yeah, well, I've thought that we could actually combine.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Hey, appreciate it.
Hey,
Thank you.
I'm a
That
new one,
was
man.
my last
Did I do
question.
all right? A little bit.